From Wish TV and the All Indiana Podcast Network, this is the News 8 Daily 8 Podcast with Wish TV's Kylie Conway. A Wish TV News 8 update.
Hi, this is Kylie Conway, and this is your News 8 Daily 8 for Monday, September 26th. Going to have a lot of sunshine today, but it's going to be cool but dry. Some windy conditions with gusts up to 20 to 30 miles per hour. Temps are going to top out in the upper 60s today. And today is the final farewell for Richmond police officer Seara Burton. The fallen officer will be laid to rest more than 6 weeks after she was shot in the line of duty. Burton was critically wounded in the shooting on August 10th. She died from her injuries last Sunday. The city of Richmond began to say goodbye this weekend. Hundreds of people waited in line at the city building yesterday to pay respects at Burton's visitation. Officers also held a ceremonial passing of the flag in her honor. Richmond police anticipate Burton's body will arrive at Richmond High School for a funeral this morning. Lots of things happening today. That happens, and then there will be a procession. Doors open to the public at 10 this morning. Law enforcement officers begin filing in at 11. Ian is now a hurricane as it moves closer to Cuba and Florida. The storm strengthened overnight and will likely intensify rapidly by tonight. People in Florida have been loading up on sandbags, getting ready for the wind and rain. Officials say they actually might start issuing evacuation orders as early as today. The state says it's partnering with FEMA to have resources ready. Both President Biden and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis have also declared a statewide emergency. And hundreds of thousands of people living along Canada's Atlantic coast have no power right now because of Fiona. Fiona transformed from a hurricane to a post-tropical storm over the weekend, though it was still powerful enough to rip off roofs and wash houses into the sea. Officials are now working to assess the damage left behind. Canadian officials say one woman died in the storm. All right, to the Colts now. The moment that sealed the Colts' first victory of the season, Rodney McLeod Jr.'s interception of Patrick Mahomes with 2 seconds to go. Defense and special teams thwarted the Kansas City Chiefs yesterday. The Colts took advantage of a fumbled punt return out of the gate, giving tight end Jelani Woods his first of 2 touchdowns. His second came in the final game-winning drive, extended by an unsportsmanlike conduct call on the Chiefs. The Chiefs helped defeat themselves, missing an extra point, a field goal, and turning the ball over on a fake field goal play. Yesterday's win is the second straight victory for the Colts against the Chiefs. Indianapolis beat Kansas City on the road in 2019. Jacksonville leads the AFC South this morning. The Jaguars beat the Chargers, winning 2 consecutive games for the first time since 2019. The Colts are in second. Tennessee comes to Indianapolis Sunday, standing third in the division. The Houston Texans stayed at the bottom of the division with a loss to the Bears. The January 6th committee is preparing for what its members have signaled is the panel's final public meeting. One key panel member says she does not expect to hear from former President Trump or former Vice President Mike Pence. California Democrat Zoe Lofgren says Pence's advisors have walked back a previous suggestion he would consider testifying. The next hearing is set for 1 o'clock Wednesday afternoon. Congressman Adam Schiff says the panel has a mountain of evidence to present then. He says the committee is still going through Secret Service communications related to the riot. Schiff hasn't offered any other details, only saying the hearing will tell the story about a key element of former President Trump's plot to overturn the election. And one of 2 Republicans on the committee may not stay a Republican. Liz Cheney says she'll not remain a member of the party if former President Trump becomes the party's next nominee for president. Cheney made the comment this weekend at the annual Texas Tribune Political and Policy Festival. Cheney also commented on Arizona's race for governor, where former television anchor Carrie Lake is the Republican candidate. Cheney says she'll campaign against Lake because Lake has been a leading voice of election fraud lies. The United States is vowing catastrophic consequences if Russia uses nuclear weapons in Ukraine. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said on NBC's Meet the Press yesterday that the U.S. would respond decisively if Russian President Vladimir Putin took such measures. Britain's new Prime Minister Liz Truss dismissed Putin's threat of nuclear action. She told CNN Putin's been outsmarted. Putin began mobilizing more troops for the war last week. He warned he is ready to use nuclear weapons to protect seized Ukrainian territory. Vice President Kamala Harris is in Asia. She and a delegation of current and former U.S. officials landed in Tokyo this morning for former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's funeral. That is set for tomorrow. Harris is also scheduled to meet with Japanese business leaders over the United States' plan to expand computer chip manufacturing. And the White House says she'll also stop in South Korea to meet with the president there about leading women. President Biden is touting his administration's moves on climate. He highlighted the climate aspects of the Inflation Reduction Act in a speech for the Global Citizen Festival. It's a yearly music festival in New York that focuses on tackling extreme poverty. The remarks come ahead of a formal speech from the president in November at a major international climate summit. To business headlines, advocates now want President Biden to forgive medical debt. Experts say America's medical debt problem has parallels to the student debt crisis. They say both are financially debilitating, putting people at risk of not being able to afford rent and food. The medical debt load in the U.S. is totaling around $195 billion right now, according to the Kaiser Family Foundation. Legislation that would ban members of Congress from trading stocks may be considered in the House of Representatives as soon as next week. According to the framework, the legislation would include spouses and dependent children in any potential ban. The legislation also calls for mandatory electronic filing of financial disclosures and more details when disclosing financial trades. Alaska Airlines has reached an agreement with its new contract. The deal includes pay increases for the more than 3,000 Alaska pilots represented by the Airline Pilots Association and comes after a lengthy negotiation process that saw pilots picketing at key hubs earlier this year and included the vast majority of pilots in the union voting in May to authorize a strike, though a strike never did take place. An economist says a U.S. housing recession could send home prices tumbling 20%. The chief economist at Pantheon Macroeconomics said in an analyst note published this week that home prices have already declined 5% from their May peak. Several startups have noticed that a lot of food that historically has gone to waste could be used, only needs to be connected with consumers who would like to make use of it. Several apps now exist that let you save food from going to waste and save money in the process. The apps use leftover food from grocery stores and restaurants, maybe food that's about to expire in grocery stores. Some of the popular ones are Flash Food, Ohio, and TreatSure. The only drawback is that sometimes the food is a surprise and you don't get a huge selection oftentimes. All right, Rihanna is going to headline the 2023 Super Bowl halftime show. The pop star and the NFL confirmed the news on Twitter yesterday. Jay-Z will serve as the show's executive producer. The Super Bowl is scheduled for February 12th in Glendale, Arizona. And today, NASA hopes to change the orbit of an asteroid. The agency plans to use a double asteroid redirection test, or DART, to smash into a small asteroid at 14,000 miles an hour. The impact should be enough to move the asteroid into a slightly tighter orbit, hopefully demonstrating our ability to divert an asteroid if it heads our way. It's kind of reassuring, right, if it's successful. We did speak to a scientist on Daybreak this morning. If you'd like to hear his take on all of this, then go to wishtv.com. And tonight, the Postal Service is holding its last job fair of the month. Organizers say that they're hiring immediately. There will be people there to answer questions and computers available so you can actually apply online right there at the fair. It's from 4 to 8 today at the USPS District Office on Guyon Road, just west of 86th and Michigan Road. This has been your News 8 Daily 8 for Wish TV. I'm Kylie Conway. Online at wishtv.com and follow us on Facebook when you search Wish TV.
This is the News 8 Daily 8 podcast with Wish TV's Kylie Conway. A Wish TV News 8 update on demand for even more on demand and on the go. Connect with Wish TV on Facebook at wishtv.com and on the free Wish TV mobile app. Thank you for listening, and be sure to like, subscribe, and follow this podcast for updates every weekday morning on the All Indiana Podcast Network and wherever you get your podcast.